Well, hello, folks. I'm L.A. Little, and this is your daily NeoTA Wrap. We take a look at these markets, and we do it from a neoclassical perspective, each time asking ourselves what happened today, and what does it tell us about the coming ones. I do this show 4 times a week, every Monday through Thursday, broadcast at or before 10 o'clock Eastern Time, archived on YouTube under the channel L.A. Little. As far as what did happen in these markets today, it was a romp back to the top side. It was kind of a spit in your face to the terror incident in Paris, kind of a patriotic rally, if you want to say it that way, not only here but in Europe. And it's whether or not it can hold, whether or not it can flower, that's another question. It is what it is, and it is an answer to the senselessness that took place last Friday. Looking at the numbers, of 1.5%, the big numbers was on the S&P 500. We had oil down, flipped around, got a big boost out of it, and eventually the financials even joined in. Russell was the laggard. You're going to want to see that Russell pick up speed, catch back up. Otherwise, this rally probably isn't going to last. You look over in Hong Kong, it was down. And actually, Shanghai was up. The DAX ended up, CAC slightly lower. Gold had a big rally early, gave it all up. Oil, as I said, flipped around, up almost 3%. Now, oil had been down like, 10, 12 days in a row. So, that was just a flip around off of what took place. And there was a flight to the dollar up 0.5%. Let's look at the charts themselves, and I haven't had a chance to go over this, so we'll look at them together. S&Ps. So let's see what we got here. So you got a bullish engulfing as it came back into the swing point high. That top was 20.86. You got down into that, flipped around. You're doing 37.4 into 41. So you come into the swing point. That's a bullish retest, regenerate. And so we're coming into this particular area. Let me clean that up and draw it again. So we're coming in right here. That's a bullish retest, regenerate. Second time in there now. Probabilities are about 60% in the case of the second time. Bullish engulfs, flips around. That's a pretty good turn. Let me see, the top here is 20.55. You close at 53. That's going to be the test tomorrow. So on the S&P, the test is right here. It's going to happen first thing in the morning. We'll see if it can get some more juice to the upside. But on the surface, not a bad rally at all. Let's look at the NASDAQ. You see what that one looks like. So on the NASDAQ, we have basically the same. Let's see here. The high was 49.89. We close at 49.84. So you don't get the bullish engulfing here. You have the lighter volume. You go under, back over. It is a takeaway bar in that it did basically take away everything that was done before. That swing point low, or highs low, was 48.80. We got to 49.08. So again, in my opinion, this was probably the most critical test this week. And the first glance at that test is that it is trying to bullishly regenerate. So you do an ABCD structure to the downside. You come into the bullish retest regenerate zone. It's the first time after more than 6 bars. That puts your probabilities as something like 92%, right? And what does it do? It comes back out of there and is going to try to press back to the top side. This low on the gap was 49.99, and again we close at 49.84. I suspect you're going to try to press back into that area. So 49.99 up to about 50.20, it looks like, is the area it's going to push to, or attempt to push to, first thing. If we look at the NDX, which had been the stronger of the indexes, this one doesn't even get back into that swing point high, so it falls short of it. And in a way, that's a good thing, because that says that, hey, even if this thing doesn't work all that much higher, you've got more than 6 bars. So when this one finally comes back into this zone, that too should be a high probability buy as well. So you don't get a bullish engulfing. You do mostly a takeaway bar here. This one's going to try to get back into this little bottoms of the gap as a first target. 45.98 or so up to about 46.09 on the NDX. Looking at the Russell. Now the Russell lagged all day. It wasn't until late in the day that the Russell actually flipped around and started to move higher, and this one almost does the same thing. A takeaway bar almost gets to the top of Friday's bar. It holds the key area though, and that was the test this morning. This bottom off of this bar, that was the key test. Gets underneath it, less volume, right? Flips around. Russell's going to try to at least move to here to start with and probably try to work its way back up to the top of this breakdown bar and the top of that big wide price spread high. And you could even go farther back over here and say this little zone right here probably is going to be the target ultimately on the Russell. Now, if we turn our attention to overseas, we go to Europe. Europe, of course, the focus, given what happened in Paris on Friday. So you had 10.586, 96, so basically 87. This gets down just a little shy of that, about 10 points or so on the German DAX, and flips around. Not much volume. Inside bar, so I don't know that that really tells us much. Yeah, it is an inside bar, but the key thing here is this index does hold. You've got a breakout, right? It hasn't even came back to do the retest regen off that swing point highs break, which was here and there, and so you're more than 6 bars. If it does get back into this area, it's probably pretty much an automatic buy. But right now, it doesn't even want to come there, even after what happened over the weekend. If we look at the CAX itself, there we actually did get back lower. Let me see, swing point high here was 47.33. We didn't quite get to it, 47.51. So again, even if we see more pressure, more than likely it's pretty much an automatic buy as you come back into that. And if you look at the volumes on this bar, which was the breakout bar, and what you've got coming back at it, it's no contest, folks. So a pullback into that area is going to be a buy if in fact it takes place. If we walk over to Asia, we saw that Hong Kong was struggling last night, and most of the emerging markets in general are struggling as a result of the strong dollar. This low, 21.817, you got down to 22. Almost got into it, 21. Yeah, not there yet. But that's the bar where you're going to see the buyers show up. It happens to be as part of a bullish retest regenerate. There's actually 3 bars here that were broken to the upside. All those bars are serving as the bullish retest regenerate. So as it's coming back into this area, that's where you have to expect the buyers are going to show up, and I suspect they will as that takes place. Volumes coming back, not nearly the volumes we saw on those bars, so I would be very surprised, if this trades down underneath here. Matter of fact, if you're looking for a nice trade, that's probably not a bad place to be looking. More than 6 bars on the breakout, and so a pullback now. Let me look at this last one, 22.424. 22.4. So we actually did have a test of this swing point high, but not the 2 underneath it. If we walk over, take a look at, I want to look at Taipei, because Taipei has been having it pretty rough here lately. That's the chip sector. Many times that's a precursor to what's going to happen here. So Taipei does trade down. Yeah, so going a little slower here tonight because I really didn't have a chance to look at any of this. This one actually had tried to test back in once before, did not hold on the second test. And so, Taipei, if we look at, and the reason I'm looking at it is, this one had done a huge spill, big bounce, failed right where it should. And we talked about this the last time we looked at it. Failed right where it should and is trying to regenerate lower. My suspicion is what you're really going to see is you're going to see a continuation of this ABCD structure probably, and take one more attempt to break over this bearish retest regenerate zone in that particular market. If we move over to the OX markets, right, where we have a strong dollar continuing to be probably the most market moving event out there still, even though it hasn't taken any kind of a toll yet really with respect to the US markets. It's definitely taking a toll elsewhere, emerging markets in particular. 25.91 is the top. You got just within a penny of that top. You're going to attack it probably tomorrow. Let's take a quick look here at the emerging markets, see what they did as a group today. They had been under pressure and they got a pretty decent bounce. So we'll see how far that can lift, especially if the dollar continues to ascend come tomorrow. Gold, I talked about last night. Gold was unable to really get anything going, or maybe I should say it had no staying power, because it had a pretty good bounce this morning pre-market, but by the time things really got rolling, it started to give it all up. Ends up just slightly on the day, still inside bar. As you know, we were talking about the fact that it had tested this low on lighter volume, suggests to me that it is going to try to make a run back to the upside. And what I didn't see today is any kind of real follow through on the bonds in any kind of a meaningful way. And you can see there, you see that low Friday was 22, so you got under it, back over it, a little less volume. This is probably going to try to get up into that little gap area again come tomorrow. So bonds really struggling to get anything going on the upside. And finally, if we look over at the oil market, we had a big turnaround in the oil market. So we traded down, back up, bullish engulfing, just like we saw on the indexes. And this one is going to try to get back into these big bars, these swing point lows. So all the thing to be watching here, of course, is how does it attack the swing point lows that it broke on the way down. Those are the first line of resistance on the way back up. And, after this kind of a turn, I suspect you'll get some follow through. You have to realize what the oil market is, what you're dealing with is a lot of short covering many times. You come down here with no volume, so a little short covering here makes sense. We'll see how far that can travel on the upside. That really puts some juice in some of the sectors. If we pull over here and take a look at some of these sectors, let's pop those up. I follow about 25 to 30 sectors during the day, and by the end of the day, every one of them had turned positive. I was curious about transports initially here, because transports were kind of hit off the terror incident, less traveling, expectations for less traveling. Closes up about 0.5% by the end of the day with a little bit more volume. Tested into the swing point lows and didn't break the highest, or the closest one, I should say. Tested into it. It did break this one on Friday. So that was the weakest sector out there. You had some pretty good strength, though, elsewhere. Let's take a look at a couple of these and see what they look like. I'll pop over to the energy sector first, as it got the largest push to the top side, and you can see it here. It was up almost 3. Well, it was actually 3.3% higher today. A big turnaround. If we look at that on a weekly, it's still going to try to come back up here and test in to these bearish retest regens one more time. So you get the test here finally, right? You've got a nice little structure for this to actually work higher. ABCD structure looks like it goes from here back to there, and a push, if it really gets going, will take it over the top and turn this trend finally, at least on the short term, on the weekly time frame, turn it sideways instead of down. And that would be the first time that's happened in quite a while. This thing has been perpetually down. You can see it here on the screens, down, 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 and just continually, right? Just one after another, always to the downside. You had one trend transition back here to a sideways. There was absolutely no volume back there. The push up this time, if it's really going to do something, you're going to want to see it take out these swing point highs. A push over that area would tell you that oil probably, or at least the sector, in this case the XLE, the large integrateds, really have probably bottomed finally. A sector that was struggling today was finance. Let's look at what those ended up as. This sector really couldn't get much going, and I wanted to see if they got the bullish engulfing too. 23.85 under it, and the top was 40. Yeah, they did. So bullish engulfing on the financials, a little less volume, but over it. This one's going to push back up into that 24.50 area and try to get back up to the top. So I just see a lot of positive out here tonight. I don't see much negative. And unless we get some exogenous event, my take here is that tomorrow you're going to see some follow through on these indexes, push up a little bit higher, and then at that point, we'll probably settle back in. And you've got if you look at what's coming up economically, you've got the Fed minutes out on Wednesday. I'm sure they're going to parse that. That's probably going to get people to think about and remember about what's happening with respect to interest rates and the threat of the Fed to actually raise them come December. So, when I look at these indexes, I think you're going to get pushed back up into these higher areas. It looks positive to me. So a big turnaround. It came right where it should. We talked about it last night, and that was you come into the swing point high. What was a bar over onto the side here that now has transpired. It's not on the screen anymore, but it is essentially this area. Came right into it, got the bounce right where it should. I'd look for it to go after this gap, get back above it, and try to probably get into this area up here. That's it for tonight, folks. I appreciate you joining me. Have a great night. Tell a friend, tell two. I'm LA. This is and was your daily NeoTA Wrap. Have a great night, and I'll see you next time. Good night.